This is going to be a short section of the final exam review on Chapter 14. And first I'm going to start talking about the difference in body composition between an infant and a toddler. We think of infancy as a year and below, and toddlers, changing between that year 1 and year 2. And I don't care so much that you know these exact percentages, but I want you to notice how that the fat definitely goes down when we go from infancy to a toddler. Water definitely goes up. And in between that first and second year of life, this is where not only does the body composition change more, but the diet changes more. And that 12 to 24 months, that year to 1 to 2 year range, that the diet changes the most at any other time in life. So the toddler nutrient needs. The protein needs can be met by just a regular diet. When we get into the toddler years, they're basically eating small portions of an adult diet as opposed to, say, breast milk and infant food. The carbohydrate recommendations are the same as an adult, and this means that they're actually large compared to the proportion of other foods. And this is because the brain is very large at this stage and compared to the rest of the body, and the brain needs glucose. So the carbohydrate needs are essentially the same as an adult's needs. To figure out the fiber recommendation, just take the age and then add 5. So a 3-year-old would need 8 grams of fiber per day. The fatty acid recommendations are very, very important. I'll talk about this on the next slide, but the fat needs overall are about 30 to 40% of total calories in the diet. Now, this is a lot. This is a lot greater than what we generally recommend, 20 to 35% for an adult diet. So it's very important not to put an infant on a low-fat diet. This has not been shown to decrease any sort of heart disease risk in the future. And fats are essential for growth and development. Vitamin D is an important vitamin. Again, most toddlers, just like seen here, they're covered up, long sleeves, sunscreen. This can decrease the amount of vitamin D conversion in the skin from UV light. So vitamin D, either intake needs to increase, or sometimes it needs to be supplemented. Iron is another important mineral. This is very important for growth, and if infants aren't eating a balanced whole food diet, then it's very easy for them to miss out on this important nutrient. So back to fat. Omega-3 fatty acids are extremely important for growth and development, particularly with brain development, cognitive development, but also there's an association, a decreased risk of asthma in toddlers who are obtaining enough omega-3 fatty acids, and also a lower risk of ADHD. Now I want to talk about food allergies and differentiate between food allergy and food intolerance. A food allergy is an adverse immune response to a food protein. Now, when we think of immune response, I want you to think of rash, itching, swelling. Severe symptoms can be anaphylactic symptoms, which means swelling of the tongue, the lips, the airway closes. So there can be mild and severe symptoms, but this would be an immune response where the body recognizes that the protein that comes into the body is foreign and wants to attack it, so it develops this immune response to that. It's very different than a food intolerance, because a food intolerance is not an allergy, it's more of an unpleasant symptom. It's generally something like lactose intolerance, where an individual may not produce lactase, the enzyme that will break down lactose into glucose and galactose. And then it goes undigested into the colon, and then basically creates all these unpleasant symptoms. So that's a food intolerance. It's not an allergic reaction. Now, a food inversion is basically a tense dislike. Almost all children will go through a phase where they don't like a food or have a very intense dislike to it. They generally, but not always, grow out of it. Jumping up to the teenage years, there's only a couple things I want you to know. I think most people know that it's very common for teenagers to have too much fast food, too much processed foods. A lot of times they're generally feeding themselves. They're becoming more independent. Oh, excuse me, let me go back. And having too many solid fats and soda. Generally not consuming enough whole foods, not enough fruits and vegetables, and the two most important nutrients, which happen to be minerals for teenagers, are iron and calcium, and they are not getting enough of these two most important nutrients for them. Just a handful of things I want you to know about seniors. There are a couple nutrients that actually have a recommendation that decreases, and vitamin A is one of those. So there's actually seniors need less vitamin A after the age of 70 than they do beforehand, and that's due to the increased absorption. Another one is iron. Seniors, you don't want to have seniors taking in too much iron. There's a decreased need, the iron status improves, and actually too much iron can contribute to the development of Alzheimer's disease. So make sure you know iron and vitamin A, the recommendations actually decrease. The one that actually increases, well, there are a couple, but vitamin D, the recommendation increases over the age of 70. This is very important for not only chronic disease, but particularly osteoporosis, as well as calcium. The recommendation increases as well. And then hydration is very important. Lastly, I just want to finish with physical activity. The more active someone is in their senior years, the more calories they can take in. If they're taking in more calories, the more nutrients that can be consumed. There's also less muscle mass that's lost. If they have more muscle mass, they have greater strength, they have more independence. So it's very important for seniors to stay active. This is the end of our section on Chapter 14.